Hello and welcome back to How About. I'm Ben.
And I'm Katie.
And this is the podcast where we get you the best advice for starting your career. This week we're going to talk about journalism, which is an industry very close to our hearts, and we've been talking to some really exciting guests. We've got BBC presenter and BAFTA winner Victoria Derbyshire.
You might remember her from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the one in 2020 in the Welsh Castle.
It was mental, I have to say.
Talk radio host and former newspaper executive Mike Graham.
Did you know, Ben, he's not just a journalist, he's a comedian as well. He's done a stand-up show with Mike Perry.
And I was singing it in the car.
And entertainment correspondent Josh Rom,
who's interviewed so many celebrities, the likes of Tom Hanks and Renée Zellweger.
And then she walked the red carpet and then I got to interview her and I was like, oh my God, that was like a game-changing moment.
So Katie and I both started out our, let's say, journalism journeys in hospital radio, but this is an industry with several different routes. We chatted with Victoria and Mike about how they got started.
Got to uni and did English, and a friend of mine wrote for the university newspaper, so I thought, oh, that might be quite fun, because you get to interview people and you get to review films, and I was actually just seeing it as a social thing, you know. You might go to I went to the University of Liverpool. Gosh, I'm going to go to the Everyman Theatre and interview an actress who's appearing on stage, or I'm going to go and watch a film and review it and just write 500 words about it. So that was quite fun. I thought it was fun. And then I thought, you know what? I don't actually think I'm that great a writer. So that was the first time when I thought, I wonder if there are other ways of doing this that don't involve writing. So then I started to research courses. I didn't even know I was thinking about journalism. It still hadn't clicked. It was weird. And then there were things like, you can do, after university, you could do a 1-year postgraduate in broadcast journalism. That was the first time I'd heard that phrase.
Well, do you know, my father was in newspapers, but he wasn't actually a journalist. He was a graphic artist. And as a result of him, I met quite a few of his friends. A lot of them were sports reporters. And they all just seemed to have a very nice time, generally speaking. And I was quite enthused about all of that, one. But also, two, I quite liked the idea of kind of putting people on the spot. You know, I was quite kind of anti-authoritarian, I suppose, at the time. And I quite liked the idea of making people answer questions and you know, be kind of responsible, to be held responsible for the things that they were doing. And I went to Bath University and got involved with the student newspaper.
Sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time. Katie, have you ever been in that position?
I was lucky enough to do work experience at Virgin Radio, and when I got my confidence, I was cheeky enough to ask for a full-time job at TalkSport, and they said yes.
That's so cool. Here's what Josh had to say about being in the right place at the right time.
So I didn't get into my first choice uni. I got into my second choice uni, but I wouldn't have had the student television, student media opportunities if I went to that first choice uni. And then that at uni, because I had those opportunities, including local TV and reporting, that then gave me the opportunity to really focus into my masters. And then when I was doing my masters, I was then at the right place at the right time in order to evolve into the next stage of my careers. And I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason.
I love that. That was really good advice. Everything happens for a reason. So we asked Mike what his career highlights have been so far.
And I loved what he had to say. It was my favourite bit.
Well, I guess when I was in newspapers, working in the States was pretty thrilling because I was quite young. I went there when I was like 23, and I literally had the kind of $100 in my pocket thing. I had a girlfriend as well who I was in love with, and that was one of the reasons I went there. But just going to parts of America that I'd only really seen on television. I remember getting off a plane in Dallas and getting into a rental car and driving towards the city, and we could see the skyline coming out of the horizon, and it was like the beginning of the show. I don't know if you've ever seen Dallas, you know, but and I was singing it in the car because I'm driving towards this place that I'd only ever heard about and seen on television, same in LA, driving around in Hollywood, and I'm going, this is unbelievable.
One thing that we learned from Mike was that highlights aren't just the moments when you're driving through Hollywood. For me, as a journalist, the biggest moments are the sort of breaking news moments, which aren't necessarily the happiest stories.
Or the most positive.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's usually like a procedure. I know where I work, there are procedures in place. And it's sometimes a little bit morbid to go through these procedures of like, what do we do if somebody really well known, like has an accident, passes away, like whatever it is.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it's a horrible story to report on, but actually it can sometimes make a journalist. It could be their biggest moment in their job because it makes them well known.
And then there were highlights. I mean, I don't want to call the week that Princess Diana died a highlight exactly, but I mean, that was an incredible time to be in the media because, of course, the media were being blamed for killing her. And we were turning out newspapers and selling more copies than you could imagine. And so this week has kind of brought a lot of that back for me with the whole Harry and Meghan business. It's quite extraordinary.
So, Ben, who would you most like to interview?
I was thinking about this. I really want to interview Bruce Springsteen. I think he has so much to say, and I just want to be the person that's on the other end just being like, so tell me about this.
I could imagine you two breaking out in song together.
Yeah, we could do a duet.
How would you prepare for that interview, do you think?
I don't know, but when we were speaking to Josh, he actually gave us some really good insider tips on how to prepare for those big, memorable moment interviews.
When it comes to Samuel Jackson, Keira Knightley, they're people just like the rest of us, and I think of it as I get to speak to a different talented person. So when it comes to those big names, I put it to my mind like they are just people, and I very much go in there again with the kind of content mindset of listen, you have a job to do, and that's getting the content.
So one of the things about being young and new somewhere is you have this overwhelming feeling of, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I remember doing a production internship right at the beginning where I was just completely lost. I was Googling how to do things. I was so far out of my depth. And hearing Victoria talk about this exact same situation was so relatable for me. Here she is talking about her first steps in her journalism career and how she dealt with the nerves.
My first job as a reporter, I worked at BRMB Radio, commercial radio, hardly got any reporters, so you really have to do big stuff. And I used to drive to work every day, basically shitting it every single day because I was so nervous. But when I look back, that was a good thing. It meant I was really keen, really focused, et cetera, et cetera. And because they had no staff, I got to do loads of stories, and it was really, really good experience. But I was sent to interview the mother. I went to West Midlands Police Headquarters in central Birmingham, and I was sent to interview the mother of a girl, I think she was maybe 9 or 10, who had been raped. And the interview with the mum was to put out on the radio so that the police could encourage people to come forward with information. And I was inexperienced, naive, and I said, and how do you feel about the fact that your daughter has been raped? And she said, how do you bloody well think I feel? And she was right. The way I asked it was wrong. And I just felt so awful, and I just felt crushed, quite rightly. And then I thought, okay, afterwards, when I was reflecting on it, is it okay to ask people how they feel? And of course, the answer is yes, but it's how you ask it. It's the tone. It's the, now, if I was interviewing that woman, I might say, towards the end of the interview, and can I ask you to put into words how you feel about the fact that your daughter, the child that you are there to protect, has been attacked in this way?
Wow, that was really good advice from Victoria. I think when you're in these tricky situations, asking the question in the right way is so important. And it's so scary to get it wrong, or to think that you're going to get it wrong when you're in that situation.
Oh, I know. I would be terrified of asking the wrong question. That was great. I really enjoyed talking to all of our guests, and especially talking about something so close to our hearts, being journalism. What I really want to know, Ben, is what was your favourite part?
Well, hands down, it was Mike singing the Dallas theme tune. There was very unexpected, but really enjoyed it.
I knew you were going to say that. I could have made money then on you saying that bit. At least we know he's a good comedian and a great journalist, but possibly not the greatest singer.
Maybe. So before we go, we have rounded up some of the best tips from our guests, as usual. And we've got a few bonus journalists also in here to give you a few tips as well. Next week, join us for How About Finance, where we'll be talking to the wolves of Wall Street.
See you next week.
I think, well, do you know what? My son, I was at a birthday party for a friend of mine and Piers Morgan was there. Piers gave him some advice and said, whatever you do, just keep coming up with ideas all the time and just keep telling people about ideas that you've got. And don't worry if they don't accept them. Don't worry if they make out that they're not interested. Just keep going, because I think persistence is a big thing in this business, you know.
We all make mistakes. I have made mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. And as long as you learn from them, then that's the only way you can sleep at night.
First and foremost, don't be afraid to do different things.
The best piece of advice I got given was about when I said I wanted to be a sports journalist, and the guy that gave me the job at Radio City in Liverpool said to me, the best sports journalists are great news journalists, so don't forget the news side. That was a great piece of advice. But if it's about getting into the industry, I would say love what you do and do what you love.
It's be persistent. It's be persistent. Don't give up.
Work your socks off. Never give up.
Send lots of CVs to lots of people as well, because I've seen lots of employers suddenly thinking, you know, we need to hire a couple of people. And if they've got a CV on file, there's a pretty good chance they'll call you up. You can be lucky, but you can never be lucky if you're not there, if you're not in the game. So I would just say, make yourself known.